Welcome back, one and all, to another day here at the Damage Report. I'm John Iadarola. Joining us today, very excited to welcome back Mondale Robinson. Mondale, how's it going?
How's it going? It's good to be back.
Good. It's good to have you back. We got a lot of news going on. Can't wait to hear your perspective on it. So thank you for joining us.
Indeed.
Okay, we've got some fun stories. We will definitely get to some fun news. We also have very serious news. Our first block is gonna be one of the difficult ones, but as sometimes appealing as the idea of simply just backing off from what's really going on and going to the gray havens to avoid the reality of the news might be, that's not who we are. So we're gonna face it, face first, and see what's going on and see what we can make of it. So we're gonna be talking about the situation in Maui right now. We have quite a few topics involving political violence to touch on, being increasingly normalized, both here in the US and abroad. Fani Willis finally responds to Donald Trump's absurd, insane conspiracy theory attack against her, and more revelations about Clarence Thomas and his high-flying, jet-setting ways. That's gonna be fun. Turns out there was more corruption still waiting to be discovered. I thought it was impossible. I thought we'd reached peak trip, but no, we've got more. So everyone buckle up for that. Hit the like button and share the stream if you haven't already. And send us your comments, your tweets, your super chats, and we'll see if we can get you a $100 Blue Apron gift card. But with all that said, Mondale, you ready to jump into this thing?
Waiting on you.
Okay, well, you'll wait no longer. Let's do this thing. As you can see in this footage, and I'm sure you're aware, Maui has been absolutely devastated by out of control wildfires that have forced mass evacuations, 11,000 tourists being evacuated, 36 people reported dead as of when we are broadcasting. It is likely that that number will go up. There's a search ongoing. We're hearing conflicting reports about how much of the fire has been contained. It seems like the worst of the damage has been done. But now there's the situation of trying to wade through all of this and see how many lives have been lost, both directly to the fire and indirectly from the devastation that it's wrought, particularly to Lahaina, which is one of the most historic towns in Hawaii, the former royal capital of Hawaii before American colonialism. We know as of right now, 270 structures damaged or destroyed, homes, businesses, historic structures, a 200-year-old church. There's the Baldwin home. It was originally occupied by a 19th century physician who helped save Maui from an epidemic of smallpox. That's seemingly greatly damaged. A 150-year-old banyan tree that was planted in 1873 by Christian missionaries, also affected. Absolutely devastating. Seeing people, and we've known this since yesterday, the devastation is so bad, the wildfires moving so quickly with almost no control whatsoever, that people were forced to flee into the literal ocean, being picked up by Coast Guard ships because they could not return to the land because of the ongoing fires. So all of this is devastating. It is likely to get worse, before it gets better. More bad news likely to come in. But Mondale, what do you think about this?
This is unbelievable. This combination of perfect storm where you got these winds that's caused by Hurricane Dora that just passed Hawaii, and then you see all of this destruction, like you said, of all these historic buildings, this historic tree, which is probably one of the most visited things on the Big Island. This is absolute devastation. Who can imagine that you're in Hawaii and you need to jump in the ocean not to cool off or to relax, but the only way to save your life and pray that Coast Guard picked you up. I mean, the fact that 36 people are already dead that we know of, on top of what we don't even know what's gonna be when all of this is taken, when they're looking at and they have a chance to go over what's happening. It's extremely scary. I think for me, what's blowing my mind is the Pacific Ocean is not that friendly at all.
Yeah.
On a normal case, and you're talking about the winds moving because of hurricanes, so I don't even know what's going on or who's lost at sea. So I'm really nervous about measuring the devastation beyond the 270 structures that have been destroyed, the old structures. I'm talking about the human life and what's that gonna be like at the end of all of this.
Yeah, how many people might still be missing? How many people, we might have to wait weeks to know how many have been affected by this. And thankfully, look, people are paying attention. It certainly took a little while for the news to spread. Admittedly, there are a lot of areas of the US that are being affected, by extreme weather and tragedies like this, including fatally. Lots of people, as we're going to talk about later in the show, dying from extreme heat in different parts of the country. But even the president put out a couple of messages about what's going on, saying, Jill and I send our deepest condolences to the families who lost loved ones in the wildfires in Maui. Our prayers are with those whose homes, businesses, and communities are destroyed. We are grateful to the first responders putting themselves in harm's way to save lives, as always, and says that he has ordered all available federal assets on the islands to help with the response and wants people to continue to follow evacuation orders, which obviously in some cases are very difficult to follow. And there are always people who don't want to, they're terrified of losing everything. And so a terrible situation. And I'll also say, we talk about things that happen, outside of the continental US quite often. Very rarely do I have any direct connection to it or any direct experience with it, because growing up, my family didn't really travel and all that. Maui's one of the very few places that I've actually been outside of the continental US. I've stood under that tree. It is amazing. It is a marvel of nature. I proposed to my wife in the waters off the coast of Maui, and just thinking about other people needing to throw themselves into those waters to in some cases only briefly save their lives is just devastating. This is the United States. And I know that everyone on Maui was doing everything that they could to try to control this. But that's the first responders. That's the literal last line of defense against this. There is so much that could be done hypothetically to prepare on the islands for events like this, but also to make the conditions that make these emergencies as bad as they are. We could be warding these things off. And so it's a failure on multiple levels to leave people on the island to desperately try to save lives and save property without the necessary resources. And so it is just truly devastating to see this. And I really hope that America doesn't look away, that they take a long, hard look at what happened and try to avoid future tragedies like this from occurring.
Yeah, I think also, John, if I can add a little bit to that, the idea that we need adults in the room when we're talking about preparing for these types of storms, this type of disaster because of climate change. We need adults talking about this and not the children that are sometimes displayed on the Republican side of the aisle, where people are discounting the dangers, calling this hyperbole. What's happening in Maui right now is not hyperbole. This is a real tragedy. And like you said, when people don't have proper resources, 911 can be severed. Like in this case, that's what happened. We didn't have backup for 911 lines when they were severed because of these fires. And I think people making small of what's happening because this world is heating up because of humans. It is absolutely dangerous, and people lose their lives because of it.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, so in these sorts of situations where there's a terrible thing that strikes a state, generally one of the things you hope for is notable individuals, politicians from that state to draw attention to it. So we have this video from Fox of former representative from Hawaii, Tulsi Gabbard. I have not yet seen this, but let's take a look.
What was interesting is he's talking about the existential threat of climate change. And I actually saw an interview that Tony Blinken did on 60 Minutes Australia a few days ago, where he was asked directly by the 60 Minutes reporter saying, what is the biggest threat facing humanity? Is it nuclear war with Russia, or is it climate change? He basically said, oh, well, they're kind of equal, but there's no doubt that climate change is the most existential threat we face. In his entire 4-paragraph response, he did not once use the words nuclear war.
Amazing.
So they're spending all this time focusing, telling people you gotta be afraid for your lives because of climate change, and yet they're doing so to hide the fact that they are leading us to the brink of nuclear war that would destroy all of humanity.
So look, is there a threat of nuclear war? Yes, there has been for a very long time. We should be worried about that. We should be working to avoid it, not by just building up defensive systems or whatever nonsense they'd support on Fox News, but trying to get everyone to disarm to whatever extent we can. So what she's doing there is not pivoting from climate change to a non-issue. It's a real issue. which makes me even madder than if she had just pivoted to talking about, whether M&Ms are sexy enough or whatever, because it's using a serious issue to distract from a pressing existential threat. And if someone says that it is the existential threat that we're facing, is nuclear war, if it happens, worse? Yes, probably. Here's the thing, climate change is happening right now. It is going to get worse. It's not a thing that might happen at some point. We're in it right now. And when the state that you represented is being affected by extreme weather events and all that, facing wildfires that we often face in California and all that. You have people dropping dead in the streets in Arizona and Texas, people getting second, third degree burns just from touching the ground. To use that as your opportunity to be like, forget about all that stuff with the climate change, forget about that. Let's talk about how we shouldn't be supporting Ukraine. Jesus Christ. I know that she's not still Hawaii's representative. And at times like this, I imagine a lot of people there probably are happy with that. But anyway, Mondale, any thoughts?
I was disgusted with Tulsi her last couple years in office, and this is exactly why. I mean, this is ridiculous. What a horrible way to make political an issue that does not even require it at this moment. Yes, we know climate change is a political issue, but it's usually a political issue because those on the right are denying the effects of it. We're talking about a space where we found ourselves in. There were studies, peer-reviewed studies that said between 1989 and 2019, 1/3 of heat deaths were because of global warming. Why are we trying to pretend that it's not happening? She's talking about what could happen with Russia and nuclear. That threat has been here since we've had nuclear weapons. If there's a nuclear weapon anywhere on the planet, then there's a threat for that. But I'm talking about why take this horrible opportunity in your home state and play politics in this manner, other than unless you're doing a couple things. One, trying to get clicks as a troll on Twitter or X or whatever it's called these days, or unless you're trying to get you a permanent spot on Fox News. Either way, both are disgusting.
100%. Yeah, and again, it's not like it's not a serious issue. It is a serious issue. But like if, the San Andreas Fault suddenly got ornery or whatever, and people are like dropping into a massive crevasse in Culver City, and they're like doing live coverage, and I run in front of the camera and be like, yeah, but AI is a big threat. We should really be talking more about how AI is gonna take us all. Like, yeah, it is a big threat, but right now people are dying in an earthquake. So again, it's just like, to distract, it's like, what you're doing. Mondale, you perfectly pointed out exactly what this game is. Anyway,
John,
we're gonna move.
Oh, go ahead. I didn't know.
No, you continue.
Because I was gonna say, it's like the picture that we use for when Black Lives Matter. It's like your house is on fire, and your neighbor is upset that the fire department is spraying water on your house, even though their house is not on fire. It's like, but what about my house?
Yeah, 100%.
Like why the whataboutism right now?
100%. And you can talk about more than one topic. We're actually gonna demonstrate that right now, but we're not gonna tell you to ignore what's happening in Hawaii, to ignore climate change because of our B block. They're separate issues. We should be able to do both. And with that, let's jump into another horrible thing.
And I want to, yes, sir. I'm going to do one more. Yes, sir.
Our country, our Constitution has been stomped under the feet.
Yep.
It's written according to the Bible. Like you said, we got to get some prayers for the country. We got people got to be tried for treason.
And death penalty. Well, I think we're ended on a right note. Listen, thank you guys for sticking around.
Yeah, I think America's ending, but I'm not sure it's on the right note. So she has a bunch of crazies of the exact same variety that she came from. Very rarely do our elected officials more accurately represent their voters than Marjorie Greene. She was a person posting conspiratorial, violent content on Facebook, and now those people go to her town halls. So you have a guy saying all these Democrats or whatever doing treason, they need to be tried. And then a woman shouts out and get the death penalty. And Marjorie Greene, I'm just gonna say Marjorie Greene. I'm not gonna say the other things about her that I'd like to right now that I think are perfectly descriptive, but we're not allowed to. Laughs. Yeah, the death penalty. I think we're ending on the right note. You wanna kill all the Democrats for the conspiracy theories we tell you. That's a good note. We should probably end on that. The woman Marjorie Greene, who by the way thinks that charging Trump with anything is communist because you don't go after your political opponents, thinks that it's funny that we would give the death penalty to Joe Biden and Harris and Buttigieg and all of these people. Now look, this is hardly the first time that she has laughed off or agreed with threats of mass violence against her political opponents, but she's an elected official right now. There's not going to be any censuring for this. She's not going to be kicked out of her seat. She's not going to be kicked off of her committees. It is 100% normalized that you can just joke about killing all of the people who disagree with you. Mondale, what do you think?
I mean, listen, you're spot on when you talk about the type of crazy she comes from. The problem is she's an elected official. She is one of the few people who has the joy and also luxury of sitting in Congress as a member of that house. And the fact that she can say these things and not be censored is unbelievable, except for it's also soup du jour. This is what we are. This is where we find ourselves. I think it started with, before she was elected, this is who she was. Then we saw her during the State of the Union, called the president a lie. We saw her laughing in committee when they was talking about the Haitians and the whips, and they putting it on the back of a coin that's been passed around Border Patrol, and she thought that was funny. So this is a continuation of this woman. But I also want to mention the people in the audience seem so much more different than the Republicans when when John McCain was running for president against Barack Obama. You might remember the one time where people were saying Obama was trying to take their Social Security and he's a terrorist, he's a Muslim, and John McCain stopped them at his rally. We don't see that type of Republicans anymore. We see this where they laugh at death. They are laughing at death about treason, when in actuality, they don't really care about treason. Because if they did, they'd be calling it for Donald Trump. It is obvious that Donald Trump committed treason, and these Republicans are not about that. They're about, like you said, weaponizing government for their political opponents.
I'm so glad that you mentioned the John McCain thing, because that is always like, and again, by the way, if you go back to the whole John McCain thing, his actual response still could have been better, but it showed a little bit, because it still sort of implied that like, if he were a Muslim, it would be. But anyway, whatever. He stood up to one of his potential voters, and that is good. So I don't know, Mondale, if you know this, but Marjorie Greene recently was watching the show and she reviewed it on her Twitter account. So I have to assume that the Congresswoman is watching. So let me speak directly to Marjorie Greene. I don't know, and I can't say exactly why you did what you did. I'm not going to assert that it was for one reason. In fact, I can think of at least two reasons that you might have did what you did. Now, neither of them are good, unfortunately. Maybe you can go in the chat, send a super chat or something and tell us which it is. Either you agree with those people. You agree that we should just be mass locking up, some sort of QAnon fantasy land or whatever, where everybody gets locked up and everybody gets pushed against a wall and gunned down, and it's great. And we can stage it all exactly like The Handmaid's Tale. It'll be super cinematic. Maybe you agree with that. There's a lot of reason to believe that you agree with that, because your past social media history is full of that stuff. You've previously, before you were brought into office, agreed with killing FBI agents, Barack Obama, Nancy Pelosi. A bullet to the head would be quicker to remove Speaker Pelosi than voting her out, or saying that the stage is being set for Obama to be hung. Like, it's super consistent for you to still be talking about killing your opponents. It's sad, it's pathetic that rather than actually being able to beat them, rhetorically beat them electorally, you just want to skip to killing them all. But maybe that's what it is. But maybe it's not. Maybe I'm being unfair to you. Maybe you don't actually agree with these people. Maybe you're just utterly spineless. Maybe you, like every other elected Republican, look out at that crowd and you see a bunch of dumb yokels, rubes, hicks that you have no respect for. They believe crazy things, admittedly, because you've taught them to believe those things. You've encouraged them to believe those things. And now at this point, you need them to believe those things. That way they never challenge the rich, those who have entrenched economic power. But you don't want to actually have to interact with them too much. And when they say something crazy like that, you just laugh it off because you don't have the actual guts, the bravery to tell them that they're wrong. Like John McCain did, a guy that I'm sure you have no respect for, was willing to lose a voter, maybe many voters, to stick up for what he actually believed. Or maybe it's not a thing where you're too scared to actually stick up for what you really believe, because at the end of the day, maybe you believe literally nothing. Maybe it's just an opportunistic thing where you want to be in office so people will come to your rallies, you could get paid for doing little work. Maybe it's one of those three things. I don't know. Feel free to send us a comment. I would love to know. Sorry, Mondale, what do you think? I apologize.
I know, I think you're right, and I think she should do you one better and come on the show. I'm not your
Yeah?
producer.
We have her on?
But I think, maybe you could teach her something and she could learn what journalism looks like, where people aren't just saying crazy stuff that's not factually based, like we've seen from Fox as of late, where these people go and just repeat anything. And there should be a category where you lose the right to call yourself a news station if you're not providing news, right? Like you should literally lose that. It should be monitored. Like you can't call yourself a hospital if you're not a hospital. You can't call yourself a college if you're not a college. It should be the same thing. Like this is ridiculous what we're getting over there. This unchecked, and really it's an attack on democracy. Like not just January 6th, the attack on democracy has continued, and it continues on Fox News every day. And it is absolutely ridiculous that we are allowing it.
You're 100% right. Like normalizing threats of political violence against the other side is a way that you attack the ability of a democracy to exist. You make it philosophically impossible for us to do what we do, because democracy requires that you be okay with losing every once in a while. If you believe that every time you lose, you were cheated and it's time to start hanging people, a democracy cannot exist at that point. And I do agree about the truth in advertising. I think things should be labeled accurately, which is why after years of people referring to me as Dragon Daddy, I decided I had to have a kid, because otherwise it was not honest. So anyway, maybe she'll answer, maybe she'll come on the show. Come on the show, Marjorie, come on. We can, I know that you've got your little podcast or whatever, Marge, but you can come on our show, you've got a bigger audience, and maybe you can win some people over. I know that you're very impressed with your own intellectual capability, your ability to persuade people. Well, demonstrate it by talking to some, what you would probably call raging communists on our show. So anyway, we'll see. I doubt it. Anyway, that is at the end of the day a serious topic, but we now need to transition to even more serious material, but related. An armed Utah man who was accused of making violent, persistent threats against Joe Biden and other Democrats was shot and killed by the FBI hours before the president landed in his state. They had been trying to serve him a warrant. This is Craig Robertson in Provo, south of Salt Lake City. They went to his house. He was armed. A shootout ensued. We do not have many of the details, and perhaps more will come out about exactly why it came to that, if it needed to come to that. But we do have a lot of other details. So on Monday, Robertson posted online that he had heard that Biden was coming to Utah, and he was planning to dig out a camouflage suit and begin, quote, cleaning the dust off the M24 sniper rifle. This is a post that came after months of threats against a lot of different public figures. He, by the way, referred to himself as the MAGA Trumper. It could not be more obvious what his ideology is, but at that point, there's no point in saying that the right is going to have to try to, like come up with some explanation for how no, this guy was actually like gender fluid or something. They're just not going to talk about this. Let's be clear about that. They're going to avoid this, and they should, because it's incredibly damning for them. So anyway, he's posted threats against Joe Biden, Alvin Bragg, Merrick Garland, Letitia James. That's so weird. Those are the people that Trump is always threatening online. That's a weird coincidence. Anyway, he posted in September 2022, the time is right for a presidential assassination or two. First Joe, then Kamala, talking about Kamala Harris there. They had gotten a tip, by the way, about Bragg from a post that he put on Truth Social, saying that he was gonna be waiting in the courthouse parking garage with a suppressed weapon and wanting to put a nice hole in his forehead, talking about Alvin Bragg there. So he's going to assassinate Alvin Bragg to protect Donald Trump from prosecution. He was actually, his account was suspended on Truth Social. So apparently they do have some standards at the end of the day. A person who knows him said he believed in his right to bear arms. He believed in his right to say what he feels. When it came down to it, he knew the Lord wouldn't have approved of killing innocent people. Things got out of hand because he was just really frustrated. And by the way, we're gonna get to more of the details in a sec. I will end with this. When the FBI agents got to this guy, he was wearing a Trump cap and also an AR-15 style rifle lapel pin. Remember the pins that members of Congress were wearing to demonstrate to everyone that their favorite gun is the same favorite gun of a whole bunch of domestic terrorists? Well, he had one of those pins too, small world. Mondale, what do you think?
I think you're right. And I think this goes, like you said, it's connected to the story we just finished. MTG was one of those people passing out those pins to other Republicans, wearing them right after a school shooting. we should remind people that the name of that rifle, that AR, stands for assault rifle, which is military equipment. This is not for hunting, and anybody trying to say anything else, it's ridiculous. We should also remind the viewers that Donald Trump is creating, MAGA is creating an environment for violence. I mean, and it didn't just start 2017, as far back as 2017, when he was telling police officers in a rally, don't be nice to them, rough them up. Then he started talking about migrants. We should shoot them in the leg to slow them down, or put snakes and alligators in the water. What is going on? Or beat the hell out of people that are against you. This is Donald Trump talking directly to these people and activating them. We saw him activate them on January 6th, and his language has not been quelled. And I think until Republicans are being honest with what they need to do to fix Donald Trump and the Trumpism in their party, we're gonna see this escalate more and more. And while this person may have been blocked on Truth Social, his actions cost him his life, just like what happened on January 6th. And the people will not pass at the Trump. They'll say, oh, something was wrong with him. So he, and something was wrong with him. No, the wrong with him is the Republican Party.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, look, to be fair, we have to read the response. This was posted on Truth Social. It was just a little bit ago, so we don't have the graphic or whatever. But Trump did post that he is appalled to hear that one of his supporters engaged in an act of violence like this. Obviously, we disagree with these people. We're gonna make America great again, but we're gonna do it in elections, not with violence. So it's good to see that he posted that. Of course, I'm joking. He's never gonna post anything like that. Can you imagine him actually taking any accountability whatsoever, or not even accountability, not even responsibility, just saying no one else should ever do anything like this ever? It's a joke, I'll say, the idea that that could possibly happen. But no, they say the things they say, they talk about civil war, they do the threats. It's stochastic terrorism. That's all it is. They know that in scattered pockets around the country, there are isolated, frustrated weirdos like this who are ready to pick up a sniper rifle and start gunning down their political opponents. Anyway, there's more details. I hate the idea that an interaction with law enforcement results in someone being shot. I want to be very clear about that. I also want to say that this guy had, even after he was initially contacted by the FBI, repeatedly posted threats against the agents. So this is a guy who clearly was trying to get the FBI to know that they might be shot if they came to him. That does not mean that what ended up happening was justified. We don't have all the details, but there's a lot of posts about how he's gonna gun down FBI agents. So I'm just gonna say that. And I also want to point out, at the same time, that we're dealing with this, potential attempted assassination here, we also have in Ecuador the first campaign political assassination as well. You can see here Fernando Villavicencio, a candidate who was campaigning at the time, was shot and killed. It again is the first ever assassination on the campaign trail in Ecuador. He was just leaving a campaign rally 10 days before the first round of the presidential election was set to take place. The gunman died in police custody following an exchange of fire with security personnel. So, that means that details about why exactly it happened, who set it up, if anyone, God only knows, we don't have the information now because the person died. We can say that as a candidate, he was outspoken about corruption and the violence caused by drug trafficking in the country. He said that the Ecuador had become a narco state, and he proposed to lead a fight against what he called the political mafia. So, an outsider. I am by no means obviously an expert on Ecuadorian politics. I'm not going to try and get over my skis in terms of analysis of this, but the fact that he was an anti-corruption candidate who was gunned down is hardly surprising. In any event, the election is still gonna go on as planned, albeit obviously without this candidate. So, terrible news, not just in America, but also going on in Ecuador right now. And I feel terrible for what they're experiencing. I know that the Ecuadorian people have got to be absolutely rocked by this. This is not the sort of thing that's supposed to be happening there. Any other thoughts, Mondale?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a tragedy. This is a tragedy for democracy, and also this idea of how we check government and corruption, right? And I think also, and I don't want to make everything about Donald Trump because it's not, but I definitely want to say that this spread of strongman attitude in this part of the world and around the world. I mean, we saw it in Brazil with Bolsonaro, we saw it in India with Modi. All of this all of this came out of manosphere and out of Donald Trump and his Trumpism becoming worldwide, which is letting people know that what happens in America becomes, standard. I think how do we say that we are leading democracy or the leading democracy in this world, the older democracy, when we see attack on our capital, and you have half of the elected officials in Washington D.C. denying that it happened. We have no shoe to stand on and call out the strong men in Ecuador that killed a person who was combating, a corruption. So I think we look hypocritical when we start as a nation, when we start pointing fingers at what's going on in Ecuador, and we can't even hold accountable the people who did that in our capital.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, well, geez, 10:30. We're gonna take our first break. We come back. Other news to get to, everyone. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. There is too much news. That's basically what's going on. On a daily basis, there's just too much news. Hold on one sec. This is an interesting way of putting this. Apo Lock on YouTube says Craig was the cake Fox News baked. Craig being the guy making the threats. Yeah, they know what they're doing. Can you imagine if you were advocating for violence and then someone I don't know how these people live with themselves, but honestly, the list of people who I do not understand how they live with themselves is a mile long. Anyway, with that said, we're gonna jump into some of your comments and welcome some members, including Nothing Good Over There, who became a tier 1 member on YouTube. Thank you, Nothing Good Over There, for being here. Maddie says, John, I'm ecstatic to watch you become a father to our Queen Reina, but I just want you to know I'm gonna go utterly insane without you, my main go-to voice of reason to face the daily news. Thank you, and I appreciate that, and I will be back. I will not stay 1 second longer than I am legally allowed to, and I will stay exactly as many seconds away as I am legally allowed to. But anyway, the show is gonna go on, everybody. You're gonna have Francesca and Brad and JR and Rayvana, and you're gonna have Adrian and Jessica. Everybody's gonna be showing up. It's gonna be awesome. They're gonna be doing a lot of shows, and they will do a show that is just as good as this show and no better, because I need this job. Nobody's taking it from me. Anyway, I'm gonna give the Blue Apron gift card early, probably too early, but I'm gonna give it to Don Quixote. It's spelled differently than it normally would be, in the Twitch chat, for reminding us, and I had forgotten about this. Wasn't a political person assassinated last year in Japan? And that is 100% true. The former PM Shinzo Abe was killed, and just as shocking in Japan, because that is a country that does not have some political violence in Congress or whatever, but not lethal political violence. And guns are much less common there. It was sort of like a homemade thing. But anyway, I appreciate you reminding me of that. So $100 Blue Apron gift card goes to you. Send an email to rewards@tyt.com. Sunderreal, thank you so much for your comment. I appreciate that. Okay, let's see. Rigel Cummins, member for 8 months, says little free libraries. There are worse people than that lady. This is referencing a story in the pre-port about a woman who's married to a Republican state legislator who is going to little free libraries and taking out the book she disagrees with and stuffing it full of Bibles. Anyway, says, I have found explicitly hateful material, even anti-trans stickers for kids. I don't believe that there's a special place in hell for these people, because unfortunately I don't believe in hell. But if it did exist, and I sometimes wish that it did, I wish that there was an especially special place for these people. Anyway, okay, let's see. Monkey Tang says in a super chat, Tulsi was always a fake, and it's sad that I was played and used to believe, but she never fooled the Salt Dragon. Pour one out for Anna for calling her out day one. Look, she changed over time. I mean, I'm not saying she was ever great or whatever, but she was not what she is now in 2015. I will just say that. Or maybe she was and she was doing a better job of hiding it. But if you supported her at one point, it's not like there weren't some reasons to do that. They gradually dropped away, and the supposed leftists who supported her in 2020 after she literally came out against Medicare for all and was hating on the Green New Deal, that started to get into suspicious territory. But don't get too down on yourself. There's sophisticated campaigns to get people to support different candidates. So it's hard when you've got a complex life and it's full of things to keep up and all this. So don't be too hard on yourself. Anyway, but yes, credit to Anna, by the way, who took a lot of heat for early coming out against Tulsi Gabbard. That is true. And we'll be right back. Okay, everyone, so much news to get to. Prepare yourself as we jump back into this story.
They say there's a young woman, a young racist in Atlanta, say racist. And they say, I guess they say that she was after a certain gang and she ended up having an affair with the head of the gang or a gang member. And this is a person that wants to indict me. She's got a lot of problems.
This is a story that we talked about yesterday on the show, an insane attack that Donald Trump is making against the Fulton County District Attorney, Fani Willis. Just lying about her past, implying that she had had some sort of affair with a gang member. It's not true. He's referencing a video that references a Rolling Stone article that neither says nor implies anything like that. There is literally no evidence. He knows that there's no evidence. He knows that it's an insane, misogynistic, racist attack against Fani Willis, but he's making it regardless. And it's become such a big thing online that the DA has been forced to actually respond to it internally to her team. She's calling it derogatory and false, which is her right because it appears to be 100% derogatory and false. She emailed her colleagues and said that it's false, and she urged her staff not to respond to any of the allegations, saying, "You may not comment in any way on the ad or any of the negativity that may be expressed against me, your colleagues, this office in the coming days, weeks, or months. We have no personal feelings against those we investigate or prosecute, and we should not express any. We have a job to do. In this office, we prosecute based on the facts and the law. The law is nonpartisan. You should feel no need to defend me." And so look, that's probably a good strategy. It's got to be devastating for her and for her family and her friends to see all of a sudden millions of insane people spreading conspiracy theories against her. She cannot be surprised by this, I'm sure. She must have known that when she started to investigate Donald Trump, it was going to open up her and the people that she cares about to not only lies, but also threats, literal death threats. So feel terrible for everyone in this sphere for what Donald Trump has already done and what he almost certainly will continue to do as the indictments come out from Georgia. Mondale, what do you think?
I think, this is a playbook out of, the Southern strategy, right? We should not divorce Donald Trump from history. We should not allow the Republican parties to dance on this myth that Donald Trump is something new. And what I'm talking about is in 1968, when black people were able to be seated by the Democratic Party. This is history that people should know, right? Because we're talking about this is where Donald Trump comes from. This same line of what made the Republican Party where they are, and why they're no longer the Republicans of Lincoln, right? This is when the switch happened. When Ronald Reagan and other Democrats like Strom Thurmond left the Democratic Party to become Republicans because Fannie Lou Hamer was able to force the Democrats to seat black voters, right, at their convention and give them the right to vote. What happened was Nixon happened. After Nixon, then it was Reagan. Reagan continued on the Southern strategy that Nixon created to reach out and activate this white evangelical vote against blackness. These people who were, descendants and believers of the plantation, antebellum. So, and what happened was Reagan went to Philadelphia, Mississippi, the place where people were killed for trying to register black people to launch his campaign for presidency. And then he started talking about a welfare queen. Mm-hmm. This is the same argument that Donald Trump talking about a black woman that's an attorney letting off gang members from alleged crimes that she was investigating them for. Is the equivalent to a black woman. Reagan saying a black woman was a welfare queen giving her money to her pimp, her black man pimp. This story is absolutely disgusting, and we got to put it in context so people can see that as bad as Donald Trump is, this playbook is not new. It is not new, and it is dastardly and disgusting.
Yeah, and also while he's individually responsible for the things that he says and the people who spread it, who don't know or care what facts there are behind it, are responsible. Like they're doing the strategy and they have done the strategy forever because of who we are as a people. That there are so many people who want to hear this sort of thing. They see a black woman in a position of power and they want to see her destroyed. And they will readily, without any critical thought whatsoever, believe anything you say that leads to her being destroyed. Like that's who we are, or not we, but capital We, a lot of us anyway. And so it's terrible to see. It's terrible to see that it works. I would love for him to make an attack like that, and that's the end of him. Nobody supports him anymore, but that is just not the country that we live in. Okay, we're gonna move on to another. I cannot believe there are still updates coming out about this story, but let's jump into our D block. Clarence Thomas has done some stuff that is arguably corrupt. I know that I'm rocking your world. I'm shocking you by declaring that. And I know that you think I'm referring to the months of stories that have come out primarily from the amazing investigatory work of ProPublica, but I am not. I mean, I am talking about ProPublica, but it's new stuff on top of all of that. They've found even more unreported gifts and trips and hotel stays and private jets and all of that stuff. So let me try to catch you up on the extra stuff being added to the mountain of corruption. The mountain of corruption that I will remind you, don't get too excited, will lead to nothing happening. But here is what has already happened. They have identified at least 38 destination vacations, including a previously unreported voyage on a yacht around the Bahamas. Ooh, that sounds very nice. 26 private jet flights, plus an additional 8 by helicopter. That is so many helicopter trips. A dozen VIP passes to professional and college sporting events, typically perched in the skybox. Elysium, but for sports. 2 stays at luxury resorts in Florida and Jamaica. 1 standing invitation to an Uber exclusive golf club overlooking the Atlantic coast. All of that, again, we've known so much about what he has already done, but I want you, dear viewer, to think about your life, the life you've already lived and the life that you hope to lead. Will you take 38 vacations in your entire GD life? I know I won't. And that's just the ones that he was gifted over the last couple of decades. And so look, there's a lot more about this. They've done great work and you should definitely support ProPublica for what they're doing here. But Mondale, it is crazy how pervasive. He didn't spend a weekend in DC over the last 20 years. He was jetting off to Belize and he was going to Hawaii and he was going everywhere. What do you think?
Clarence Thomas has pimped the Supreme Court to make him the political version of Tony Montana. This man is jetting around in jets, 26 private jet flights from donors. He's sitting in sports boxes. He's a rapper. He's a rapper without a single hit. He's beyond a one-hit wonder. He's taken the seat that was earned and also fought so hard for by Thurgood Marshall and turned it into his personal vacation tour. He doesn't even need to own. He has the best. He has the best timeshare ever. The man is using the Supreme Court as a timeshare, and he's killing it. The sad part about it is, all of those events, you better believe, come with influence.
Yep.
And that influence is not for the betterment of American people. It is for the benefit for the few, and most likely very few people, exclusive people that can afford to send somebody somewhere on a yacht around the Bahamas or on a private jet 26 times. Yeah. That is disgusting.
Yeah, and we know some of those people. He's involved in this Horatio Alger Association, an association which, by the way, when a new member comes in, $200,000 needs to be donated. They don't need to necessarily do the donating. Someone else could do the donating for them, but this is a very high-priced thing. And I will just say that some of them, unlike Harlan Crow, there are these individuals. Let's see, I want to mention some of their names. We have oil baron Paul Tony Novelli. He's one of the billionaires. You got H. Wayne Hoitzinger, Inga. When your first name is H. Dot, you know you're a billionaire. David Sokol. Some of them, by the way, have not individually had cases before the Supreme Court during the time that they've been involved and known Clarence Thomas. And if that makes you feel better about this, I want you to consider how the world works. So they have not individually had cases there, but they are all massively invested in industries that are massively affected by the decisions of the Supreme Court. Do we believe that because they are not literally standing in the Supreme Court, or their chosen high dollar lawyer is not standing in the Supreme Court, that Clarence Thomas, it's just lost on him what effect his decisions could have on all of his billionaire benefactors? That is not affecting how he rules, which cases he chooses to take or not? Come on, nobody is that naive. Anyway, if you are that naive, I've got a high-priced yacht trip to sell you, I guess. But in any event, again, to go back to the intro, Mondale, nothing is going to come of this. Like the Supreme Court is fighting against future ethics constraints, not consequences for what's already happened. Nobody is talking about impeachment or anything like that. Nobody in DC is talking about court expansion, and they're fighting against the idea that they might have to in the future disclose these trips. Any final thoughts?
I just think we need to be considering impact over intent, right? And we can say what we want to, whether the impact or the intent was to have influence over this Supreme Court justice. I guarantee the impact is it is. We should start counting the cases where he's ruled against any of these people or any of their interests, whether they were there or not, or by proxy. This is absolutely disgusting, and it makes a mockery of the way that we choose our Supreme Court. This is why I'm for expanding the Supreme Court, where Republicans choose a certain amount, Democrats choose a certain amount, and then some other body choose the rest, so we can make up a Supreme Court that makes some relevance of equality. Because right now, this is as dumb. The way we choose our Supreme Court is as dumb as the way we create congressional districts.
100%. Yeah. And by the way, there's a concept of when you have a conflict of interest, you recuse yourself from a case. What if your entire life is a conflict of interest? Should you not recuse yourself from the court at a certain point? Anyway, nothing's gonna happen, so don't hold your breath. Okay, with that said, we're gonna take a second break. We'll be back in just a few. Okay, I have to correct an error that I made in that last segment when I asserted that anyone with H. Dot as their first name is a billionaire. It is true that H. John Benjamin is not a billionaire. He should be, because there's no better voice actor in the business than H. John Benjamin. Archer's amazing, but I don't believe he is a billionaire. So I take it back, I was wrong, okay? I can admit when I'm wrong. Anyway, with that said, let's jump into some comments. Resting Stitch Face, that's hilarious, says this goes out to Johnny Hardwick, voice of Dale Gribble on King of the Hill. Rest in peace, man. I had not seen that. That's very sad, and thank you for shouting out him. I know a lot of people enjoyed King of the Hill for many years up until now. Noelia Brunini, member for 28 months on YouTube, says, "Go ahead, John, intellectually smack Marjorie." Can you imagine what a cluster F the show would be if she ever came on? Dear God. Okay, Maddie on YouTube says, first shout out for my favorite journalist. Thanks, Johnny Pie. You take all the quality time you need. We in the gang will hold the fort down indeed until you're ready. Thank you, I appreciate that. There are a very long number of ways in which I am not a journalist, but I appreciate you saying that and affiliating me with journalists. Okay, let's see. Alley Cat sent in a super chat saying, "Hey John, have you ever read Joe Abercrombie's books? The audiobooks read by Stephen Pacey are incredible. Maybe late night listen with Baby Dragon. His books are done, unlike GRRM. I know I'm still frustrated by that. I am familiar with him. I don't believe that I've read any of his books. I have heard good things. I do need to get around to that. Okay, Spanking Spider Dragon, member for 12 months, says, "Congratulations, Dragon Daddy, on baby Reina. OMG, Maui, heart goes out to the people. Why isn't Trump in a holding cell? No justice in USA." We'll see. He seems dead set to violate the protective order that'll probably be in place within a day. So maybe he'll end up there. We'll see. We'll see if our system can, at the end of the day, ever actually work. Okay, MK Varana's been with us as a subscriber on Twitch for 33 months. Thank you for that. Ukami, also 35 months, thank you. The Mixtro for 13, thank you. Luddite 24, The Crow 31, thank you. Goose Jail had this to say, I think this is a reference to Tulsi Gabbard's comment saying, it's hypothetical danger versus an actual real danger. It's not a fair comparison. Look, that's true, but also, why do we have to pick one of those two to focus on? What does one have to do with the other? By the way, if you believe that nuclear war should be a fear that we have coming out of a conventional war, maybe we should avoid climate change that everyone knows is gonna lead to more intra and interstate wars. If you don't want the ground to be set in a way that could lead to these conflicts, rapidly escalating, maybe don't heat up the entire world. Anyway, Mondale, did you have something to say about that?
I agree with you. I don't need the man explain it.
Okay. Thank you. Galfar says you should read some of the Star Wars EU pre-Disney stuff, John. Maybe then you will realize that Jaina Solo is much better than Rey Skywalker. I am not going to change the inspiration for my daughter's name at this point, but I have actually read several of the Star Wars EU novels. They're enjoyable. I do like them, and I am familiar with them. Thank you. I've not read about Jaina Solo. Perhaps at some point that will come. Anyway, let's see. Ace Hunter has been here for 19 months, says congrats on baby, get naps whenever possible. I'm certainly gonna try. I already nap a lot as it is. I was so exhausted after yesterday's show that as soon as it was done, I fell asleep on the couch out there for 15 minutes. So I'm ready to nap, don't you worry about that. Okay, lots of comments here. We will definitely get to more, thank you. But we gotta get to more news first, starting with this. Okay, it kills me that we do not have enough time to get to both of these stories. I guess we're gonna continue on as we are with the E block. Okay, it's important, it's fine, let's jump into it. Arizona is, as you know, grappling with extreme heat. Extreme both in how hot it is, but also how long it's been as hot as it is. They didn't just break their record for more than 100-degree days. They blew past it. Nobody can even see the prior record anymore in the rearview mirror. Every single day of July has reached 110 degrees or hotter, demolishing the previous record. Most of those days were above 115 degrees, and most night the low stayed above 90 degrees, setting records on both fronts, both the high and the low. If you are lucky enough to live in a place where it never gets that hot, that is unacceptably hot. It should be clear that that is a temperature at which the human body cannot function after a certain point. People die, literally, their body just shuts down. Your heart stops working, your kidneys no longer get oxygen, your gut cells die, and your brain eventually shuts down as well. Heat stroke is a very real thing, and the average body temperature of a human necessary to trigger heat stroke is way lower than the temperatures that they're reaching. And this is not a hypothetical thing. The heat has already killed 39 people since April just in Maricopa County. One particular county, 39 people have died. More than 300 other deaths are still under investigation as potentially being related to heat. And it's gotten so bad, by the way, that in Phoenix, they've had to bring in new refrigerated storage containers to hold all of the bodies. This is an image that you might be familiar with from the pandemic. We have reached it again now with what we've been doing to the climate. But as bad as it is, and as demanding as it seems to be of some sort of response from government, the GOP, which is still obviously very powerful in Arizona, they don't think it's a big deal. Take a look at this.
I wanted to let you guys know that it is 110 degrees and we're not dying. I'm wearing a long sleeve black dress and I'm fine. Don't believe these people who are telling you lies. This is not excessive heat. This is normal heat for us in Arizona. Now, if you're not from here, you should have known this before moving here. You could always move back to where you came from, but we don't need any FEMA money. We're not in any crucial, dire need of any government assistance because of the heat. We are used to it. We knew what we were getting into, and we love it.
We love it. Well, some might love it. The ones who it killed, they don't love it. So my question to Janet Margarita would be, do the 39 people who died in Maricopa County just from this heat wave, do they love it? Like as a thought experiment, I want you to imagine, what would it look like if you were to create a stack of those bodies? If you were to literally pile them up as they are figuratively piling up in morgues, how big of a stack of people who are literally just killed by how hot it is in that place that you're saying it's perfectly fine, just go back where you're from or whatever if you don't like it. How big of a stack of dead Arizonans would that be? That's my question for Janet. It's also my question for Republicans in the state Senate. Arizona Senator Justine Wadsack, who tweeted, she's 100% correct. The weather's normal. If you can't stand the heat in Arizona, you're welcome to leave. Granted, you might leave in a body bag, but you are free to leave, I guess. That's the stance of the Republicans. The Kerry Lake War Room said that those who want a climate emergency to be declared are radical leftists. It turns out the majority of deaths can be attributed to the meth their policies allow to flow freely on our streets. Others in the Arizona State Senate just saying the weather's normal. Let's be clear. Like, take it up with the thermometer. Don't take it up with me. You blew past the record. It's not my weather that blew past the record. I mean, it's really bad here too. This is not something where the weather is about your feelings. The fact is people are dying. The fact is you blew past your record. Take it up with reality. Mondale, it feels terrible to see people literally like dropping dead in the streets, and you have people doing a don't look up on the temperature in Arizona.
I'm 100% confused that this woman. You mentioned these refrigerators that had to be sent in for the more dead bodies and how that harkens back to the pandemic. We also know that her words sound just like the people that are telling people not to take the vaccine during the pandemic. Talking about she's dressed in all black and 110 is not hot. Really?
Yeah.
Because I think it's more than a human body temperature. It's too high of a fever to exist. Like this, you have to be dumb to believe that this is cool. This idea, she's probably standing in front of a fan blowing on her, and she probably took that dress off as soon as she finished that video and ran in the house and complained about how hot it is. This is absolutely ridiculous. Oh, by the way, this idea that you don't need federal money, well, send back that 1.2 billion you received from the Infrastructure Act that you already took. Tell Arizona to send that money back and wrap it up and send it to Enfield, North Carolina, where I'm mayor. We definitely need it. This is ridiculous. This is the talk that is downplaying. This is what I'm talking about. The idea that we don't have adults talking about the climate or policies when people will end up dying, or in this case, already died from a serious issue.
Yeah. By the way, you asked some hypotheticals. I'll ask hypotheticals, and I don't know. I honestly don't know if that individual is, for instance, a construction worker, or a roofer, or a road worker, or a UPS delivery driver, or a mail person, or someone who works in one of the many massive warehouses that are not air conditioned. It's entirely possible that she is. Maybe she works not in an air conditioned building, away from it. Maybe she does actually experience that. I would then say it is shocking that you have no empathy for the other people who are suffering under that. I would ask the hypothetical, are you familiar with what happened in Texas, where two people who were living in a trailer park literally baked to death? Their AC went out and they couldn't afford to repair it, and so both of them died. They were killed, cooked in their home because of what we've done to the climate. It is just shocking to me. Like, I'm not gonna say that going into the pandemic or whatever, I necessarily thought that everyone was always like prepared to be a part of the solution, but like going forward from now on, you're not allowed to make a zombie movie where you don't have at least one person filming a video in the streets denying that zombies exist as their neck is chewed on. Like, that is who we are as a people. There will always be someone who is saying, stop being bothered by the fact that you're dying. Like, you should be much more okay with the fact that the system we've set up is killing you. I don't understand humans anymore, Mondale, coming out of a few years in this career. I just don't get us anymore.
And you forgot one part, John. You should also enjoy it.
You should enjoy it. You should love it.
You should love it.
Yeah,
you should love
it.
That climate.
And if you don't love it, you should just move, which everyone can do. Everyone can afford to just uproot their life and their family and their career and just go someplace that is cooler. Where exactly that's supposed to be in America, since the entire country is baking, I don't know, and she didn't say. Anyway, apologies to the people of Arizona. I'm sorry for what your government is doing to you. Anyway, with that said, that's all the time we have for the first hour. More to come in the aftermath. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Aftermath, everybody. I am John Iadarola. He is Mondale Robinson. Mondale, glad to have you here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And also found out, thanks to a text message during the break, that my mom is watching. So hello, Mom. I am incredibly uncomfortable right now. I'm kidding. Anyway, we're gonna talk about a lot of news coming up. Little bit of a rift inside of the church about how to address like the crossroads of Christianity and modern conservatism. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. We've also got Eminem attacking Donald Trump and then being attacked by people who are utterly aggrieved by the fact that he would express his politics or his political opinions. And then are Pop-Tarts turning kids gay? We'll debate it after this. But first, some of your comments. Douglas sent a super chat, no comment, just a super chat. Thank you for that. I wore Jenko jeans sent a super chat saying, hey bro, I appreciate how you live by what you preach. You're a solid dude. Also, I am a father of 2 girls. It is the best. You will be an amazing dad. Congratulations to you and yours, bro. Thank you, Jenko jeans. I appreciate that. That's very nice of you. Okay, let's see. Jonah Morton says, we need a Supreme Court chosen by 2/3 of Congress, not which party is in power in the Senate. Maybe. I don't know. I'd worry about that too. I'm worried about all. I don't like any of this. Let's see. Franken-Dragon, member for 12 months, says, congratulations on becoming a for real Dragon Daddy, John. You have no idea what's in store, but you'll be a great father. Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna try to be a great father just because I don't want to let the audience down. I don't want them to be like, oh, we were really wrong about that. That was a terrible prediction. Anyway, Sailor Digurin says, the first time I saw Tulsi, I thought she looked like a Captain Planet villain from the 90s. Since then, she's done nothing to change my mind. That ain't right. That ain't right. Of all of the issues to have with Tulsi, her hair is cool, I think. I like her hair.
I don't know. I gotta agree with this. This is definitely giving me someone who pollutes, and we gotta do something about that to stop her. Like I see it. I see it.
Well, the issue I think with her in terms of that is the fact that she doesn't support the Green New Deal and her climate agenda. While better than some establishment Democrats, is weak sauce at best. Anyway, with that, they should reboot Captain Planet. That was a fun show. Or maybe they did, I don't know. Anyway, I'll find out this stuff going forward with the kid. But anyway, for now, let's jump into some news, starting with this.
Well, it was the result of having multiple pastors tell me essentially the same story about quoting the Sermon on the Mount parenthetically in their preaching. Turn the other cheek. To have someone come up after and say, where did you get those liberal talking points?
Wow, that is something. That is the voice of Russell Moore, the editor-in-chief of Christianity Today, talking to NPR about partisan tribalism that has seeped into Christianity for the first time, probably. There's never been any political stuff in there, but that is wild. Hearing people say like, "Oh, you're quoting Jesus." Not for me. And it actually kind of gets worse. Listen to this.
And what was alarming to me is that in most of these scenarios, when the pastor would say, I'm literally quoting Jesus Christ, the response would not be, I apologize. The response would be, yes, but that doesn't work anymore. That's weak. And when we get to the point where the teachings of Jesus himself are seen as subversive to us, then we're in a crisis.
Now, look, I like, people who don't just believe whatever they're told to believe. I like rebels and all that, but if you are a Christian, I think you're supposed to largely agree with Christ. I think that's like kind of a big part. I'm an atheist, but I feel like if you're a Christian, Christ is pretty central. So if he says something and your gut instinct is, nah, that's weak, let's do something else, you can do that. But I don't think you're a Christian at that point. Anyway, it's not up to me, Mondale, to be clear, but I find this battle inside of Christianity to be fascinating. What do you think?
I mean, this is not a new battle. I mean, this is this is not something that's just solely right here. We've seen so many people misinterpret what it means to be Christianity or what it means to be Christian. I mean, it was people in their Sunday best that used to hang black people from trees as a family event and cut off body parts and take it home, right? It was in the name of God. But this is also where people forget that, Paul, the doctrine of Paul in the Bible give space for, slavery and all the other things. And I don't want to make this into a biblical conversation, but we should really understand that white Christianity has never really been about the teachings of Christ. It's more about the teachings of Paul. So I could see where this delineation happens, where people, you take out Jesus' name and say words, and then I can see white Christians, especially Southern white Christians, disagreeing, like, this is not my Christianity. And we talk about that a lot, about the difference between white Christianity, especially in America, versus what black Christianity is. For us, those of us that are, black nationalists and also black Christians, the gospel is supposed to be the ointment that soothes the suffering of people that are oppressed, that live with their backs against the wall. And white Christianity has never been about that. It's been accepting of slavery. It's been accepting of oppression century after century. And so I'm not surprised that this guy is speaking about Jesus in this manner, about what you do for the least amongst us. So that would already create a problem, because Donald Trump would find it extremely hard to be the person that Jesus talked about, right? It would be hard for Donald Trump to get to heaven, as Jesus said it, right? But these people don't seem to believe that. They think they're supposed to give more to Jesus, more to Donald Trump than they are the church, as they support his legal fund.
I don't know exactly what they would do to you if you brought up the whole, the fitting a camel through the eye of a needle or thing or whatever. But like, I imagine crucifixion would be on the table at that point. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that's super specific that just gets cast off. And I don't know, definitely, I liked your comment about how, it's supposed to be like a salve for people who are victimized and, all that. But they've found something, and by they, I mean some conservative Christians have found something that they like more. It's just like virulent white supremacy, which is simultaneously both a narrative that you are a victim, but also that you are inherently better than all the people victimizing you. So it is its own like subjugation and solve at the same time. And that's what he's presenting. And so it shouldn't really be any surprise that these people, they do worship Donald Trump more than Jesus at this point. Not a lot, but some. Like, they like his message better because it's much better tailored to the sense of victimhood that they find for some reason to be so appealing.
Yeah, I mean, these are the same people, Johnny, you know this. These are the same people that will skip church on Sunday if Donald Trump's in their town. Let's be clear. They're also the same people that talk about the Democrats weaponizing different federal agency because they are prosecuting Trump for crimes that he committed. But they also are telling, if Trump wins, he's gonna go after these people using the Department of Justice. So they have no problem with it when they're in the seat where they need to, victimize or weaponize our industries for people being their opponents, not for breaking laws. And I think the hypocrisy is on display every time somebody writes or speak on it in this manner.
What's interesting about this is obviously he's critical of the effect that Trump and Trumpism has had on them. Trump has actually talked about it before. Back in 2016, he said, Dr. Moore, Russell Moore is truly a terrible representative of evangelicals and all of the good they stand for. A nasty guy with no heart.
It says the guy.
Says the guy what?
Says the guy that says 2 Corinthians. Like, you don't even read
2 Corinthians.
Like, it's 2 Corinthians, my favorite book.
And what are you more like a New Testament guy or like an Old Testament guy? Both. Both have their appeal. He doesn't know the first thing. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't care anything. He has so little respect for Christians that he won't even put effort into duping them. He does the duping, but with no effort whatsoever. I swear to you, conservative Christians, that if I ever try to get rich off of your backs, I will put minimal effort into it. I will learn a favorite verse or whatever. I will lie to you. I'm really more of a New Testament guy personally. I will do that for you, but no, not Trump, the guy who separated the families and banned another religion and has obviously had a bunch of affairs and has sexually assaulted people and all of that stuff that should probably rule him out as being the favorite of evangelicals. But why would they have standards for him? They love Marjorie Greene. She's a good conservative Christian. She was just standing on a stage laughing when people were talking about killing their political opponents. Like, it's all turned upside down. Anyway, Dr. Moore is probably not gonna be able, or Russell Moore is not gonna be able to, right the ship necessarily, but it's not my ship. If you guys wanna have a Christianity that, like is worth what it claims to be, you can't follow false idols like this. Anyway, I mostly just say this stuff to bother Congresswoman Greene if she's still watching. Okay, with that said, I'm gonna respond to a few comments and then we're gonna jump into more stories. May Money, hey May Money, says, now John, Marge might be on her way to your mail slot right now to heckle you. Steph Curry funded the little libraries in Oakland that I'm walking around visiting as we speak. He's an NBA star jock. I know who he is. That's awesome that he did that. I'm glad to hear that. Okay, let's see. There were a lot of comments about my mom, thankfully nice ones. Matthias says, hi John's mom, you did good to have such a great kid, thank you. Cam S says, hi John's mom, congratulations on becoming a grandma. Lazy Peon says, Grandma Iadarola in the house, thank you. She's very excited to be a grandma, trust me. Over on Twitch, Irie Man gifted a sub, thank you. Slasher's been here for 26 months and says, congrats on your daughter coming, hope you enjoy your time with her. Thank you. Ayalana has been here for 30 months. Says, congrats, John, and family, love the name. Enjoy the early days. They can be very hard, but they're lovely. Have a great time away. Thank you. I believe that I will. With that, let's jump into some more news.
When I start talking about Trump, I get too flustered in my head. I just get flustered and frustrated watching him play to his base that thinks that he cares about them. And it's actually the people that he cares about the least. If you're talking about his core being, a majority white middle class, what I don't understand is how in the do you feel like you relate to a billionaire who has never known struggle his entire life?
So that is, of course, Eminem speaking out in support of Trump's base, with empathy for Trump's base. He doesn't like that they're being duped, and I can recognize that in him because I feel the same exact way. Now, you will be shocked to find out that that's not how they're going to take his commentary, and we'll have a lot to say about it, but first, here's a little bit more of what he said.
I will say this, he talks a good one. And if you're in his base, you're a core, let's say you're going to the rallies or whatever, you watch him on TV, you hear him talking this shit. There's part of me that understands like, all right, he's somehow still got them because he's brainwashing them into thinking that something great is gonna happen. Nothing's happening. Nothing is happening.
So look, this is hardly the first time that Eminem has attacked Donald Trump or the MAGA movement. He's been doing it for some time, but they're not happy about this. There's tweets, weirdly, largely from people with blue checks on Twitter saying things like, I will never let a celebrity millionaire tell me who to vote for and why. They're not just like me, and so I don't expect them to know what's best for me. With all due respect, I don't give a damn what Eminem thinks. And the best way, as we all know, to get that across is to respond to them with a full paragraph. This person, it doesn't matter who they are. To be clear, I looked at their profile. They support Donald Trump a ton. So they do like what some millionaires tell them what to do. But anyway, there's a lot of them. Lawson Kreider saying, Eminem, you're a rap god. I love your music. It helped me get through being a pissed off, hormonally imbalanced teenager. I agree he can't truly identify with 90% of people out there, but his goal is to focus on the US, to make us sufficiently independent. That will be great. That's a much more reasonable comment. It still has apparently no ability to tell who Donald Trump actually is or what he actually wants to be president for. But anyway, Mondale, what do you think?
I love the first comment. They try to use like one of Eminem lyrics to like, don't diss Eminem, who's like probably one of the best battle rappers ever. He's like, you're not just like me. I'm not gonna take advice from a millionaire, but you will from a billionaire. At least Eminem has poor times in his track record. Like there was a time where Eminem lived in a trailer park with his mom, right? Like this guy was not born wealthy. This is what he's trying to say. Like, I know you, you are my people. Why are you being duped by this guy who can't relate to us, right? Even, and I mean, like this idea that they would prefer Kid Rock from Michigan, not Eminem from Michigan, because Kid Rock goes along with Donald Trump's silliness. But even Kid Rock can't relate to y'all. He grew up filthy rich too, because his dad owned a string of dealerships throughout Michigan. But it's that core, it's that thing that's stronger than God that we were talking about earlier, right? It's that thing that Donald Trump has with them, and it's the victimhood that he installed, that he empowers them with, to say, you know what, it is everybody against you, and this is the form of America that we should support. Let's make America great again. And nobody can or is willing to point to what point in time are you talking about, because it will expose and unravel this entire lie that you're just talking about white supremacy. You want to go back to a time where Negroes and others could not stand up against white people with a straight back without being punished.
I will. The only disagreement I'll have is I think that's like 80% of it. I think 20% of it is they also want men to be elevated above women. They want straight people to be elevated above gay people. They want cis people. They want the rightful hierarchy. We had a system, it was great for people like me, and that's the way it should be forever. And how dare you people come along and change it? And that's what they want. And of course, the time that they're hearkening back to, the top marginal tax rate was like 91% or something like that. They leave off that sort of stuff, but they love the social setup at that point. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, you're spot on with that, John. And I mean, let's be honest. I mean, that time is the time, right? That time is the time for them. And that's the funny part for me, that you see white women voting against their own interests when they support Trump and other Republicans, and it's like, do you too want to go back to a time where you had no right to vote? You too are interested in when your husband told you what to do? And in some states like South Carolina, rule of thumb comes from what, John? The right that a man had to beat his wife on the county step, as long as the stick was not as wide as a thumb, right? You could beat your wife on the step. Is these the times you guys are hearkening back to? Come on, man.
I forgot about that one. I have occasionally threatened to start a podcast where I dive into the origins of these phrases. I feel like rule of thumb is gonna have to be one of them. Anyway, thank you for that, for reminding me. Okay, with that, I think we're probably gonna have to move. Oh God, there's some great stuff. Anyway, he has criticized Donald Trump a lot. And I will close by saying this, in fact. Like, you're getting mad at Eminem there. Eminem is not attacking the base. I don't know, maybe at some points he has. And I understand that while I generally try to have my commentary speak out in support of conservatives who I believe that have been duped and left behind by right wingers who don't care at all about them, they're put into office, and the same for their media class, by millionaires and billionaires to delude right wingers into supporting the economic status quo. Like, I will occasionally lapse into being insulting, and I apologize for that. I shouldn't do that. I don't think that's what Eminem is doing. So when you get mad at him, it's such a defensive thing. Like, I really do think that it telegraphs that on some level, there's a recognition that this is a con. That Donald Trump, whose entire career has been conning people, scamming people and all that, has just finally transferred it over to politics. And that's what they're a part of. I think that there is some recognition, even if not conscious, and that's why they get so mad when people point out this sort of thing. But anyway, as we learned with that country artist and his tried in a small town, I thought it was okay for musicians to say whatever they want in politics. I thought you were totally cool with that. Now all of a sudden Eminem says a couple things about some other dude and you're mad at him. I don't understand it. Anyway, with that said, we're gonna move on in just a sec. I wanna read a few comments, including from Osborne on Twitch, who says, the positive thing about recent hot temperatures, throw ground meat into the air, catch hamburgers. 100%. The issue is that we're becoming the hamburgers. Okay, let's see. Christopher says in a super chat, I want to start a little banned book library. Also, don't let the door hit you on your way out, John. Just playing, enjoy the time with the wife/baby. I like the idea of doing a mix where it's a little banned book library. That is good. I've thought about putting up a little library in front of my house. I just worry that, like, are people gonna be annoyed by it in the neighborhood or something? I don't know. I like the idea of it though. And maybe I could do books and extra board games. Maybe I'll do that. Anyway, new members over on YouTube. Behooves as a tier 2 member, thank you. Arrowette 2000, a tier 2 member, and Danielle Cass, a tier 1 member. Thank you to all of you. I appreciate your continued support. With that, let's jump into our final story of the day.
Stephen Miller here, president of America First Legal. We just filed a federal shareholder lawsuit against Target following its disastrous pride propaganda that erased billions in shareholder value. We are fighting ESG extremism. Read more at aflegal.org.
Great delivery, Stephen. No need for a second take. You nailed it, buddy. Let's pack this thing up. That was terrible. That had all of the energy of like a late night low rent lawyers commercial. And that basically is what this is actually. He is apparently in charge of this America First Legal. And what they're doing is suing Target. So they're doing it for Brian Craig, an investor in the company. And the argument is basically the same argument that was made by Ron DeSantis, was that they did a thing. After that, their stock dropped. So you can sue them for doing the thing because the stock dropped. Now, of course, they're leaving the fact that Stephen Miller and his movement tried as hard as they possibly could to make the stock drop. They're glad that the stock dropped, but they have to pretend for legal reasons that they have a problem with it. So it's a bold legal strategy. Mondale, what do you think?
I think it's gonna fall flat, as that commercial was, and I just all I could think about was the Clear Eye guy. Like it's like, why is this Vulcan talking to me? Who is this on the screen? I can't take him serious. I don't like Stephen. I've never liked this guy. We bumped into each other once in Washington D.C. and I swear I wanted to think. I almost felt like I was Jackie Chan and was gonna do a spin kick, but I was like, that's probably gonna get me locked up. Like that. So I didn't. I let the guy keep walking and enjoy his steak. But honestly, this is ridiculous. I mean, I laughed about it because all I could think about was when the Dodge brothers sued Ford for paying his employees too much, and he said he was robbing the stakeholders, and they actually won. So we should remember that this is America, and crazy things have happened. Like, and I while we're laughing and joking in the right court circuit, who knows what this could be.
Yeah, I'm worried about that too. I also believe, and I don't even know if this is the sort of thing that you could get disclosure on. Maybe Ken Klippenstein can do it, but like, how much you want to bet they're doing these campaigns? They're helping tank the stock. In most cases, very briefly. In some cases, it is down. Target is down a little bit. Anheuser-Busch is still down. You know, everybody leaves off that it's at where it was at earlier in the year, and it's been way higher than it was before it started to go down. Stocks go up and down. But how much you want to bet that they are buying the stock after they tank it? It goes down, they tank it. They know that eventually right wingers are gonna buy Bud Light again, and then the stock price will inevitably go up and they can make a bunch of money. Like, I feel like that should undercut the legal case if it exists, but I don't know that it could actually be proven. Along the way though, there's just a lot of ridiculous claims. Like saying that you're owed money because you sent a bunch of crazy homophobes into Target to wreck pride displays is such a weird stance to take. But it goes maybe even a more ridiculous territory than that. They're also doing an investigation, or they want an investigation into Kellogg, because Kellogg did like advertisements for pride on cereal and Pop-Tarts and stuff. And they're saying that they knew that would tank the stock, but they did it anyway because they were so self-destructively woke. No, you guys are the people who are so sensitive, so easily triggered by like a mascot on a Pop-Tart box that you will stop eating nature's perfect food for that reason. You should be so lucky as to have a Pop-Tart, and how dare you throw it in the trash. But anyway, their stock went temporarily down, and so they think there needs to be an investigation. I share your fear. I don't know even that they will fail because the system is set up to protect wealthy investors, but I don't know. It's just such a, they are an honest parody of themselves at this point. Any other thoughts?
I mean, just that, like I did it there at Target. People we should not become like fooled by who Target is. Target, remember a few years back, and by a few years I mean 10 or 15, we found out that Target was allowing the federal government to use the surveillance system. Target was so advanced at surveilling people that they were sending congratulations on you being pregnant to women before these women even told their husband or spouse they were pregnant. Like, so, I mean, we should not be celebrating the fact that Target, was readily letting cops surveil people with their technology. And I think this is how ridiculous, like you said, they're the parody of themselves. You're going after the people that are supporting the institution that you used to love so much, i.e. cops, i.e. the federal government. And now we just see their ideal, their brand of America has nothing to do with the institutions that make this country up. It's all about how much they can get over on.
100%, yeah. Yeah, and how much they can use things like this conveniently to utterly distract their base. So final appeal to the conservatives out there, they don't actually care about any of this stuff. They want to keep taxes low. Their taxes, corporate taxes, that's it. And they know that if you realized how much you were being robbed and how your wages never go up, then you might want to do something about it, but it's difficult to do something about it when you're spending all your time filming TikToks of you bothering the employees at a Target. Anyway, that is unfortunately all the time we have for the show today. Mondale, thank you as always for joining us. Where can people follow you?
Please first go to Rebel HQ and follow Mondale Robinson. Get a notification every time I go live, which is 4 times a week. And then I'm Mondale Robinson everywhere on social media.
Awesome, everyone definitely follow that. A lot of fun. Mondale, thank you, have a good one. And for those of you out there, you've got a little bit of homework before Indisputable starts up. That is to go to the community tab at youtube.com/thedamagereport to vote for your garbage person of the week. Brett Ehrlich will be joining me. We're not only gonna have garbage people of the week, but I think we've got a pretty ridiculous damage report court that we're going to be adjudicating. So you're not gonna wanna miss that. For now though, stay safe out there, stay sane out there, and we'll see you soon.
You